So Elden Ring does have an easy mode. Let me show you in this uncut step-by-step walkthrough. I'm going to turn you from a level 1 novice to a god who can kill a boss in Limgrave with a 2-button combo spam, and then pretty much coast through the rest of Elden Ring, because this build scales really well. And the crazy thing is that you can do exactly what you see here without killing anything yourself, and right at the start of the game. If you follow this build, it will easily take you from the early game all the way through multiple New Game Plus playthroughs, and it's a really fun way to play the game. Our power attacks alone hit for 25% additional damage, and we deal a ridiculous amount of bleed. But normally most bosses will die before it even takes effect. I'll be going over how to play the build, its combos, and the buffs later in this video. The guide also includes the fastest early rune farming location as well. Everything you need is timestamped below, so let's get started. The best starting class for this build is either the Samurai or the Wretch, for having the best level 1 base stats in the game, especially if you want to respec later. If you're following this build as the Samurai though, you'll have no issues, even if you're going into New Game Plus. So for that reason, I'm going to be picking the Samurai. Here's everything we need to get started. Make sure that you pick the Golden Seed Keepsake as well, since it lets us increase how many flasks we have for healing and focus points. It's by far the best Keepsake option here. Starting out, we can loot this maiden for her tarnished finger, and then head out towards the boss and either jump off the cliff, which is the fastest way, or die to the boss. It's not actually a unique enemy, so it doesn't drop anything we can't get later anyway. Now we're going to get our healing flask, and we can head up the stairs, light the Site of Grace, and then head up the lift to Limgrave. After you fling open this first door, you can activate the first step Site of Grace. Here you also want to speak to Varé and start his quest line by just exhausting his dialogue. And now we can jump off the cliff and head directly north to the first church of Ella up the hill here, and you can grab some ingredients on your way. Just outside the front of the church, you'll also find some runes that you can pick up just next to this post. Then come back inside and unlock the Site of Grace. If you actually open your inventory and use that rune fragment you found, you can get 400 runes. We're going to need to spend those runes at Carlay, the merchant just here, and with them we can buy the crafting kit for 300 runes. But as I get older, I find I'm having less time for gaming, which is why I'm really excited about today's sponsor, Factor, because it solved that problem for me in a healthy way. Factor make freshly pre-prepared meals that are never frozen, and it takes 2 minutes to heat them up. And with nothing to prepare and no pans and plates to clean up afterwards, I can get back to gaming as soon as possible. Factor have a weekly menu of 35 different options with Protein Plus, Calorie Smart, and Vegan, and even have 60 optional add-ons like snacks and drinks, so you can literally have your entire diet covered and delivered straight to your door. So I don't waste time going to the shops, figuring out the ingredients I need, and also there's just no wasted food. But don't take my word for it. Head to factor75.com or click the link below and use code ESO50 to get 50% off your first Factor box and 20% off your next month's orders too. That's code ESO50 at factor75.com to get 50% off your first box and 20% off your next month's of orders. Now if we look at the map and we head up the pathway to the north, you're going to want to press A to place a beacon just where the map marker symbol is on the map. We can now head out of the Church of Ella and follow the path to the north through this forest towards that beacon that we just placed in the distance there. You can actually see it in the sky. And as you approach the end of the forest, you'll see the Gatefront ruins just ahead of you. Go to the left towards the Site of Grace right in front of the gatehouse itself. We don't actually need to fight any of the enemies in this ruin. Now if we go and rest at this Site of Grace, Melina will appear to us. And make sure you accept her help. She'll allow you to level up, and she'll also give you a mount called Torrent. You can also now use the golden seed that you were carrying to increase the charges on your healing flasks. And then we can just wait until morning. Next, if you press the start button and then press right, you can switch the hotkey to your mount. Just select it from your inventory like this, and now if you hold down the Y button, you can just press up to call torrent and then mount up like this. It's a lot easier. Next, we're going to head down this path from the Site of Grace and pick up the first map fragment in front of this tombstone. And now if you go across and hop over this little ruin here, you can come down the stairs and loot the treasure chest in this room for the Wheatstone blade and an Ash of War that we don't need. As you're heading back out the stairs, if you actually crouch, you can go into sneak mode so enemies don't aggro as easily. Cross back over the path towards the Black Carriage, which is guarded by an enemy who we can easily backstab here. It's just here next to the Gatefront ruins on the map. Once you take him out with a backstab, you can loot the chest he was guarding for the Flail, which is very useful later on, but it's actually not required if you're playing as the samurai because your katana also does bleed damage. Next, if we check our map, you can see this is the resting spot at the Gatehouse ruins. We want to go all the way to the east along this path, then across the bridge, and you can place a marker just on the other side of the bridge there. So starting from next to the Gatefront ruins there, you can turn around and just follow the path that we're on just here all the way to the east until you reach that bridge. You can also find a smithing stone as you cross the bridge. Now once you go across the bridge, head to the right hand side and you can get one Somber smithing stone for upgrading special weapons from this gentleman on the chair. We'll need it later. Then if we head across the path and up the hill and go to the left just along the cliff edge here, you'll see a few enemies hanging out near this wooden pole. You can grab a golden pickled foulfoot from here and just ignore all the enemies. Then if you turn around and ride towards the cliff edge to the west, we can then open our map and you'll see to the west on the unexplored area, there's actually a path. So we're going to place a marker on that path. And now you can see the beacon in the distance near the ruin in the trees there. So now if we head south along the cliff edge, we'll eventually come to a updraft area on the ground below. Just keep heading along the cliff and you'll eventually see it between the trees. There's a big gust of wind. If you now jump off the cliff and land near it, it will break your fall so you won't take any damage. Once you've actually landed, just head through the forest to that beacon that you placed earlier on the path. There are a few bears and sloths in the woods, so make sure you try and avoid those as you pass through, but the path itself is safe. If we open the map again once we reach the path, you'll see there's a nearby Mistwood ruins. Place a marker here, another one to the north at the mapstone symbol just here. It's actually a requirement that you go near the Mistwood ruins until you hear the howling. This actually triggers a quest we'll need later. After you've done that, you can just carry on down the path to the next beacon where we can unlock that map fragment I mentioned. Now if we actually open our map, we can see a giant Erd tree just nearby, and we're going to place a beacon right at the foot of that giant tree on the map. Then if we turn around and head into the woods towards it, right at the base of that tree, you're going to find the spiked and green tear just in a little bowl. And that's actually really important for this character build. So now we're going to open up the map again, and this time we're going to head all the way to the north up this path until we reach this rectangle shaped ruin on the map. Put a marker just there. It's actually the third church of Marika that we're heading towards. So just head over towards that marker. Once you arrive at the third church of Marika, you can unlock the resting spot and you'll find a sacred tier, which upgrades the potency of your healing and FP flasks. And then just here you can loot the Wondrous Physick flask. And then if we go back to the resting spot, you can go ahead and upgrade your flasks just here. And then if you go back to the menu and you navigate to Mix Wondrous Physick, combine the spiked cracked tier for an additional 15% charged attack damage and the green spill crystal tier for a temporary boost in stamina. If you press down on the D-pad, you can swap to this and use it. Both of those buffs last for 3 minutes. Next, we're going to take a look at the map, and just north of the church is this little lake, and you can go through the bushes here, through the hole in the wall, and then hop over the rock into that lake. And then just on the right, you'll see a hidden portal, which we need to use to reach Dragon Barrow. This is like an endgame area, and once you arrive, you can mount up and turn around and just head down this pathway to the south. there's actually another golden tree you can loot for another golden seed just here. Then if we continue down the path to the bridge below, there's another resting spot just on the left hand side which you can skip or rest at, up to you. But if we now head over the bridge, we can ignore this massive dragon that looks terrifying, but really it's absolutely harmless. None of its attacks can keep up with you while you're mounted, so you can just ignore it. As you cross the bridge, you'll see a giant Erd tree to the south there. If you keep following the path, you can head to the foot of that Erd tree. It's pretty unmissable, to be honest. And once you arrive at the base of the tree, you're going to head around its base and then use the updraft located behind it to get on top of the cliffs above. Once you jump up there, you'll see Fort Fareth ahead. You can now make your way towards it. Just out front, you'll find another resting spot of grace that you can unlock. This is actually the location of the best early game farming spot, but you'll need some gear first. So from the resting spot, you're going to head up the stairs into Fort Fareth. And once you come through the door, head to the left after entering, ignore the bats, go around the wooden barricade, and then towards the lightly lit staircase. Sprint upstairs so you don't get poisoned by the bat's cloud, and at the very top, you're actually going to find half of the Dectus medallion, which you'll need later on in the game as you progress, to unlock the Dectus lift. So now if we turn around and drop off the ledge and then onto the castle roof, you're going to run straight ahead, passing the hole just to your right, ignore the enemies as they spawn here, then you can jump down this hole and just go to the right. Now if you run and jump into the wooden section, it will break through, allowing you to land in this hidden area. Watch out for the big rat though, you want to save your dodge roll until it's about to attack you, and then dodge and drop down here, and just below you'll find Radagon's Soreseal, a talisman that will buff your stats. At this point you can just let the rats kill you. So we're going to equip that talisman in our inventory slot, and it's going to boost our vigor, endurance, strength and dexterity by 5 each. But it actually increases the damage you take by 15%. But with this equipped, we can now use the flail that we got earlier. If you also hold down the Y button and press light attack, you can two-hand the flail. If you then use the left trigger, you'll be able to do a special attack which procs bleed really quickly. Alternatively, you can use the katana, but it is much slower. Now if you turn around, you'll see a massive dragon. It is possible to farm this dragon repeatedly for millions of rune, but please do listen carefully to this next bit because you can easily mess it up. So you're going to ride over to the dragon and stand roughly where I am, near the end of its tail. Now we can stand on these mushroom things and start attacking. If we use the flail's special attack, it will build up the bleed effect much faster, causing it to hemorrhage, dealing 13,000 damage, which is a percentage of the dragon's total health. If you don't have a bleed weapon, this would almost be impossible and take you a long time to kill the dragon. So we're just going to keep using the flail to proc the bleed effect, waiting for our stamina to regenerate each time and then doing it again. You can also use the Wondrous Flask to boost your stamina further, so you can get this done even faster. But eventually the dragon will get low on health, and since it's percentage based damage, it's always going to reach this point with the last chunk of health left. At this point, it's really important that you get on your mount and you just start attacking the dragon normally. Make sure you're at the last bit of the tail and you know where the site of grace is behind you, and then position yourself right next to the tail and carry on attacking. Eventually, the dragon's tail will flinch exactly like this, and as soon as that happens, you need to sprint as fast as you can back to the resting spot of grace, and then hop off your horse and spam the Y button to rest. This will trigger the dragon to reset, but you'll also get the 50,000 runes from killing it as well. But as you can see, when I turn around, the dragon is still alive and I have 50,000 runes. So you can do this over and over again repeatedly. The most important thing to remember is to keep triggering the bleed effect until you reach the last chunk. Then mount up next to the tail. When the dragon flinches, run back to the resting site of grace and rest there to reset the dragon. If you mess this up, the dragon will not respawn, and you'll have to follow my other guide on the best mid-game farming location linked in the description below, which is a lot faster, but it takes a lot longer to get there. You only need to farm this dragon twice for 100,000 runes, and each run is going to take you 4 minutes and give you 50,000 runes each time. So with these 100,000 runes, I'm going to level up. These are going to be our stats. We have 20 vigor, 11 mind, 18 endurance. The 18 strength and 17 dexterity are a requirement to wield Bloodhound's Fang. Then we have 9 intelligence, and then this build needs 12 faith for the Bloodflame blade spell. If you're wondering, it is not worth getting 15 faith for Flame Grant Me Strength. It's okay in boss fights, but the bonus fire damage you get is minimal because it scales off your faith stat, and this build doesn't put many points into faith. We're also going to have 10 arcane, so we'll be able to use Bloodflame Blade later. And by the way, arcane doesn't scale the bleed damage of this weapon, so do not level up arcane. We'll be leveling up again later, but for now that's more than high enough to get the Bloodfang Blade, which is the weapon this build needs. To do this, we must fast travel back to the Church of Ella, north from the first step resting spot. And once you arrive, you'll find Rihanna sitting on the wall here. You can tell her you're Torrent's new master, and she'll actually give you the Spirit Calling Bell and Wolf Spirits, which are really good for distracting any boss that you might struggle with in the future. This build really doesn't need it though, because it's overpowered enough without it, but if you're struggling, just throw these in too and you'll be unstoppable. But most importantly, we need to speak to the merchant again and ask him about the howling in the Mistwoods that we heard earlier. He will then teach us a new emote, which will allow us to interact with the secret NPC there. So next, we're going to go back to the Mistwood ruins, all the way in the east here. We're going to place a beacon right there, and then we're going to fast travel back to the third church of Marika, just down the road to the north there. Once you arrive, you can just follow the path south to the beacon. I'm going to skip ahead since you've already been there and you know where it is. Once you do reach the Mistwood ruins though, you're going to see a wolf on top of that ruin howling. And you can now open your menu, navigate to your emotes, and then press swap on your emotes to select the new finger snap emote that you just got taught. Now if you test this emote or just use it nearby the ruins, the wolf named Blaidd will drop down and greet you. Just listen to everything he has to say. Also, while you're here, you can actually grab something called the Axe Talisman in the same ruin. Just turn around the corner and there's a sleeping sloth here that you can easily jump past into the secret cave, where you'll find the Axe Talisman at the bottom in a chest. It increases your charged attacks by another 10%. That also stacks with the Flask of Wondrous Physics, so it's 25% increase in total. Next, we must fast travel back to the first step resting spot just here on the map. And once we arrive, we can head directly east, down the cliff, towards the lake in the distance there. Hop off this next cliff and then go past the bats and around the edge of the lake towards the ruin in front of you. If you edge around the dragon's ruins to the north hand side, you'll see there's an archway in the ruin. And if you go inside, there's a small room with a rat inside, pretty much in the center of the ruin. Just kill the rat and loot the corpse next to it for the Stonesword Key. We will actually need this later. Now we're going to go south out of the ruin towards this big stone archway on the shoreline. There's actually an NPC under here called Yura. And while you don't need to do this, if you do kill him immediately, he drops the Nagakiba Katana immediately. It's one of the best dex weapons in Elden Ring because it's so long. You can also swap it out in this build as a really good alternative weapon, even after the nerfs it received. You can still get that weapon if you follow his questline. Alternatively, even if you do kill him, you can actually still get his armor set as well. So you actually don't miss that much by killing him and grabbing that weapon early. But for this guide, we don't need to do that. We're just going to continue onwards under the archway and head east around this battle towards the next site of grace. And once we rest here, we can then open the map again. And just to the south, you'll see there is a stone circle marked on the map. Just put another beacon there. This is actually the next boss we need to kill for the build's main weapon, the Bloodhound's Fang. So head up the hill towards that beacon. Once we reach the center of the stone circle, we can enter the boss arena by activating it. Here we can then summon Blaidd to help from his summon sign on the ground here. Even if you're offline, this still works, and it's honestly, it just makes the entire fight really, really easy. In fact, Blaidd is so strong, he can kill the Bloodhound Knight Darriwil on his own, because he does so much poise damage with that massive weapon. So you can easily run in and critical hit the boss after he gets staggered from the front. I suggest using a few jump attacks and taking advantage of each time he's staggered. It's a very easy fight, and like I said, you can get this far without killing anything because Blaidd will literally kill this boss for you. But once the boss is defeated, you can then get the Bloodhound Fang weapon. So make sure you equip it and then talk to Blaidd before you leave. He will then reward you with the Somber Smithing Stone 2, which will need to upgrade our special weapon. But first, before we do that, we need to get our weapon buff. So to do that, we need to travel to the north of the first step, all the way to the Gatefront Ruins resting spot, once again, just here on the map. And once you get here, we'll be heading down this path to the north, and I'll put a beacon just over here. Make sure you mount up and then head down the path through the gatehouse, through the worst barricade I've ever seen in my life. I mean, you can literally jump through the barricade on Torrent and just proceed up the hill, where you'll find the next golden seed as you pass this golden tree. Make sure you grab that, then carry on down the path, but avoid the wolf ambush, which is very obvious, and then rest at the next site of grace just here on the right hand side. You can find another stone key sword just here at the Stormhill Shack if you hop up the wooden scaffolding there. Next on the map, we'll head up the hill and down this path under the bridge and onwards around Stormvale Castle. So head up the hill and follow where I'm going down this dirt path just through the trees where it goes to the right here. Ignore all the enemies, head underneath the big bridge, and then all the way across this bridge in front of you. And right at the end, you're going to see a cookbook recipe page that you can loot from that body. Then we can turn left and head down the rocks, and right ahead, there's actually a secret cave-like passage that goes all the way along the cliff wall here. It's a linear passage that goes around Stormvale Castle, and it may look very bushy and confusing, but don't worry, you won't get lost. It's extremely linear. So just follow that cliff edge all the way along to Lake Liurnia. And then carry on following the dirt path and you'll come out here at the lake facing cliffs resting spot. Grab the resting spot and check your map, and you'll see that there is another map marker symbol, so go ahead and mark it with a beacon for later. Now we're going to carry on along the dirt path, but make sure you stop off at the Church of Irith for yet another secret tier upgrade. Then we're going to head back to that dirt path and just continue to the left down into the valley and through the trees here, and then just go through that fort ahead. We're going to reach the lake shores, and there's another resting spot here you can use. Just continue down the open lake path towards the beacon that you placed earlier, where you'll find the next map fragment. Make sure you get the enemies away though before you try and pick it up, because they will knock you off your horse if they all attack you at once. So once you've got the map fragment, you can head down the water path again to the next resting spot to the north, just here. Next, if we open up our map and go directly north, we can actually put a beacon just here. It's directly in line with the bridge on the right hand side there. And now if you look up in the sky, you can see, let's travel directly north to that beacon, very visible in the sky above the tree line. That's where we're going to find another map fragment and another resting spot. Do watch out for the giant lobster that will fire projectiles at you. He spawns in this lake area just here. You can easily avoid them though by just going left and right consistently like me. Now you will see that the map fragment is near our beacon. If you get lost, open the map again and you'll see this map symbol. That's where you need to go. So pick up the map fragment and rest to the site of grace, and then we can actually find another golden seed nearby. So open the map, and just to the west along these ruins, you can place another beacon just here. And then if we get on our horse and head to the west along the edge of those ruins, you'll see that golden tree just behind the roof of the sunken village houses here in the lake. So pick up that extra golden seed, and then once you grab it, just fast travel back to the site of grace we were just at. So starting from that same site of grace again, open your map, go directly west to the Rose Church, which is this giant rock on the map. Place a beacon there, and then another one at the smaller rock on the way over there, just like I do in the video. And now we can head directly west to those beacons that we just placed. This is basically leading us to the Rose Church. At that first rock, you're going to find another resting spot, and we'll actually come back here later, so make sure you grab it. Then we're going to head onwards to the Rose Church. And once you arrive at the entrance, you can open your map, and we just want to put a beacon around the north of the church. So from the entrance of the Rose Church, you'll see there's like a little scarab beetle pushing some sticks along. Go ahead and kill that, and after it's dead, it's going to unlock the Bloodflame Blade buff, which is essential to our character build, but we can't use it yet. So after we've done that, we're going to fast travel back to the fallen ruins of Lake's resting spot that we just came from. Open up the map again, and directly south from here, you can put another marker on this island. Now you'll see the beacon in the distance, and you can just head towards it. This is going to be where we can pick up the Dexterity-knot crystal, which boosts our dexterity by 10 points for 3 minutes with the Flask of Wondrous Physick. It's in the small little bowl altar on the island here, and once you have it, you can just fast travel back to the Academy resting spot that we also unlocked earlier. From here, we'll actually be heading north to a teleporter on the map. It's this small little rock with kind of like a bubble around it. Just place a beacon next to it. Now we can head northwest from the resting spot to the beacon in the distance there. It's really not hard to miss. You can just head over the roofs of the village here towards the teleporter. And that teleporter is going to skip us all the way to the northwest end of the lake, and it saves us a lot of time in walking. So go through that teleporter, and we're going to spawn right in front of the map fragment for the north area of the lake. And as you can see, we're now here. Next, we can follow the dirt road all the way to the north through the ruin here. Just head straight through the ruins, and you'll actually find there's a fake wall at the other end, which you can hit to reveal that it's an illusion. Then you can rest at the resting spot here, and now we can talk to the giant blacksmith, who actually sells Somber smithing stones 1 to 4, which we will need to upgrade our weapons. At this point though, you'll probably need to farm some more runes. So you can, if you like, head back to Fort Faroth over here on the map, and you can do that dragon farm a couple more times for another 100,000 runes. But to get the Somber smithing stone 5, which the blacksmith doesn't sell, we actually need to travel back to Fort Faroth anyway. Once you arrive, we're now going to be following this giant red burning firewall all the way along the map. Just mount up and just carry on following it all the way across the cliff here, and we're eventually going to reach a cliff edge. It is quite easy to jump the gap here, but do take care that you don't fall in between. And once across, if you actually do continue following that red burning wall, you'll then arrive at another site of grace, which I actually recommend you unlock before going further. So we're now here on the map at the Smouldering Wall rest spot after we went all the way from Fort Faroth. Once we're here, we'll head southeast towards the cliff edge. Just be careful here because you do need to land on the tombstones just below the cliff edge here, and then we can hop down. Somehow I didn't do that and survived, so I was like, okay, I'll just carry on from here. But once at the bottom, in the Lake of Scarlet Rot, you can just ride along the bottom of the cliff to the east. As soon as you see an opening in the cliffs, you can actually head down that into a valley. Then we can just ride all the way to the end of that valley, where you'll be able to hop off your mount and grab the Somber Smithing Stone 5. If you're quick about this, it's a pretty harmless run. It looks quite dangerous, but it's not. And if you want to get a free Somber Smithing Stone 4 as well, which you don't need, you could just buy it, hop back on your horse, head back out the way you came, and once you reach the entrance, go southwest through the Scarlet Rot Lake again, and then you'll see some big sort of giant twisting roots. Just go through those roots to the right hand side, and then look at that big swarm of flies up on the hill to the right. Run through those guys, and then you'll see like a small glow in the distance. That is the body you can loot for Somber Smithing Stone 4, or you could just buy it from the smither. Speaking of the smith, let's travel back to the giant smith now and upgrade our weapon. Now, I've actually farmed 200,000 runes from killing the dragon 4 times to level up. And we only need to buy the Somber Smithing Stone 3 from the Blacksmith, because that's the only one we didn't get. And then we can ask him to upgrade our Bloodhound's Fang weapon to +5. So we can use these Somber Smithing Stones that we got earlier to do this. And in my next guide, I'll actually be upgrading it to +10. So do subscribe if you're interested in that future video, where we carry on leveling this same build. But we can also tell the blacksmith that Blaidd sent us, and he will then let you purchase the Carrion Filigreed Crest, which reduces FP consumed from skills by 25%. This lets you spam the Bloodhound Fang special ability even more. And if you didn't know what that is, you basically use the special ability, and then after that you can power attack, and it dodges you back, and then you can power attack again. You basically get 2 free iframe dodge rolls, and that combination is extremely powerful, but I'll explain why later. Next, we need to level up to level 50. At this point, you're going to have 29 vigor, which is kind of optional depending how much health you want, 11 mind, endurance 20, I personally enjoy a large stamina bar, strength 18, dexterity up to 20, faith 12, and arcane 10. Also, make sure that you mix your flask of Wondrous Physick with the Dexterity-knot crystal tier that we got earlier for +10 dex, and the spiked knot crystal tier for +15% more damage from power attacks. Again, that effect lasts for 3 minutes when you drink it. We can also go to Memorize Spell to equip our Bloodsword spell in one of our memory slots. Now, to actually use it, we must now select the option to say that we're off to the Round Table Hole. Melina will then appear to take you there. Alternatively, if you've been there before, you can just select it on the map on the bottom left corner and fast travel there. Once you arrive, just go to the left of the table through this door and then speak to the 2 old crones who are going to sell you the finger seal for 800 runes. And now if you equip this, you can use it to cast the Bloodflame ability on your weapon, which will last for 60 seconds. And it applies 40 bleed to the target. But we're not done yet. Next, we're going to need to fast travel back to the north of the Gatefront ruins, back to the Stormhill Shack resting spot, just here. Once you arrive, check the map, and we're actually going to be going east down this path and literally just follow the path, putting beacons along the way, across the bridge to this small lake ruin village just here. Now, from the resting spot, we're going to follow that dirt path just in front of us, and we're just going to carry on going all the way to the east. I mean, you can't really go wrong here. You're going to head through the forest ahead. You're going to hop over the barricades. Just ignore all the enemies. Keep going. And there's a few sighted graces you can pick up along the way too. If you want to help me out though, you could drop a like on the video if you found it helpful, of course. Once you cross the bridge, we're going to head down the hill towards Summon Water Village Ruin. There's a Site of Grace just on the right hand side here, which we can grab, and I'm going to place a beacon just to the southeast of the village. That's where this talisman is located that we need. Now we can get back on our mount and just head into the village, ignoring the purpley boss right in front of us. We need to use one of these Stonesword Keys to actually get access to this ruin. You see there's a fog gate, but once you use the key, it will open and you can head down into the dog-infested dungeon. So just go right on inside, and then you can loot the green turtle talisman in the chest at the end. This boosts your stamina recovery speed by 18%, which is 8 more stamina per second. This is great for boss fights and just general gameplay, and we'll definitely be using it until we unlock better talismans in my next video. So now the early game build is complete, but how do you use it? Well, before any big fight, you're going to want to use your Flask of Wondrous Physick for plus 10 dexterity and plus 15% more power attack damage for 3 minutes. Then you're going to buff your weapon with the Bloodflame Blaidd, which lasts for 60 seconds. This gives you another 40 bleed and slight fire damage on the target too. Now that bleed effect also stacks with the Bloodhound Fang's innate 55 bleed per hit, so you can make most targets hemorrhage very quickly. But the Bloodfang's base damage is actually so high that most early game enemies normally die way before that happens anyway. So it's really just overkill. The most important thing you need to know about the moveset of this build is to use the left trigger to use your special attack before automatically dodging backwards. And then if you power attack immediately afterwards, you'll then go invisible and do a mega damage power attack. And this is basically your main combo. Interestingly, when you're doing that combo, the dodge backwards and the invisible dodge forward actually has iframes, meaning you can't get hit during those animations. And if you then equip the Axe Talisman that we got earlier, and you have the Flask of Wondrous Physick in effect, that second charge power attack, which triggers way faster than a normal one, will end up doing an additional 25% more damage. So you actually hit like a truck. Normally when you do this a couple of times, the enemy boss will get staggered, and then you can just walk in front of them and critically hit them for mega damage. So now you've got a very powerful build, you can just go through all of the bosses of Limgrave and destroy them all. Or you can head to Stormvale Castle and take down the bosses there. But what do you do after that? Well, this build can be taken a lot further. It scales into the late game, and the next video I want to cover all the way up to level 150. And I want to walk through the game to show you how to progress and get more powerful as you go. But if you just want to go ahead and level up to 150 as quick as possible, I'd actually recommend watching this guide next, which completes White Mask Varray's questline step by step, so you can farm millions of runes per hour, which will level you way beyond level 150 because it's the best farming spot in the game. So thank you so much for watching. I'll see you there.